This is one that I don't think people do enough at all as creators. You should be reintroducing yourself on your platforms through short form stuff. I just assume no one knows who I am with almost every video. My background is working at ad agencies for social. I started my career in 2011, right when social budgets came up. My first client was DC Comics, and I got to run the Batman Facebook page for a campaign, which does make me Batman. I will fight this for the rest of my life. And then through the agencies, worked a lot of different tech jobs. I've ran social strategy for Microsoft. During pandemic, I ran Verizon social strategy for the Pay It Forward concert series with Billie Eilish, Chance the Rapper, Dave Matthews, a bunch of other artists. Minecraft, did some Spotify work, and then accidentally tweeted and LinkedIn'd my way into becoming a content creator. Wasn't the goal, accidentally happened because I just liked writing about this stuff, and now I'm full-time content with my newsletter, Future Social. And this is where my business model is very different than everyone's business model here in that I don't really have digital products. I have one small one that's $5 a month, and make no mistake, the Teachable people will be bullying me into starting products this year. There's like heads nodding everywhere. So like my business is strictly brand partnerships and speaking right now. And I've just kind of made it up as I went. So with that in mind, that's where everything I've been focused on is like, how do I make, for lack of a better phrase, like the most viral content for the communities that I'm chasing possible. So we're gonna talk a lot today about how to get more eyeballs on things for this group. It will probably be a lot of like, how do we increase our top of funnel through viewership? Because I think you're all probably quite good at converting things. And if you're not, we'll get to that conversation later. So with the future of social talk, this is the question I get the most for lots of reasons. Before we get into it, does anybody have like a surprising social network that's driving their business? Like I'm thinking something that's not Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. I'm sure someone in this room has. Is anybody using like a niche social network that's like driving real acquisition or community? No? Great. That makes the next slide super easy. When I was building this presentation, I gave a talk like this last year. I was looking at my old one, and this is a slide I had because these were all very popular at the time. I got a lot of questions from brand marketers, and these can be around. I couldn't even remember what this one was for a second. It's Mastodon. This is a really nice way of saying these things don't last. Like, please don't invest in new social networks until they have scaled. Every once in a while, there's a very niche one that pops up, like Mastodon did very well with the Web3 community. Even then, like a group like this, like everyone is a scaled business at this point, and like time is your most valuable currency. It's not going to be worth you experimenting on brand new niche social networks. Like you should be in all of the scaled places. Like that's where you get the most reach, that's where you get the most audience because people are already there. And then there's these two, which are the other two biggest questions I get right now. I'm sure most of us know that Elon has done something with Twitter. What that is, we haven't decided yet. But I refuse to call it X. I never will. It's stupid. But Twitter is a primary part of my business. That's where like the social strategy community does a lot of conversation. And it's where I was doing a lot of my sponsored content for a long time. I am now desperately trying to get off Twitter. I don't want to be there. I hate the people there. I hate the safety tools. It's a ruined network. That said, it's not going anywhere. That's a question I get a lot. It's like, is Twitter going to go away? Is he going to actually burn it to the ground? And my honest answer is no. Like I think DAUs are not what they used to be, but it's very scaled. And like I think more importantly, Twitter occupies a very important space, like in the overall social ecosystem, as far as conversation, as far as news. Like it's not what it once was with news because he's chased so many journalists into like dark holes. But this really is the only like quote unquote conversational social network still. And it's the only social network where people in the replies feel like they have as much weight to talk to you as the original content itself. Like I think a huge percentage of the people here are YouTubers. A YouTube comment does not feel the same weight to a commenter as a Twitter reply does. They feel like they're actually talking to you. And because of that, Twitter's not gonna go anywhere. So if Twitter is part of your business, like, don't worry, like, prepare yourself mentally for the obnoxiousness that websites become, but it can be effective still for your business. Which brings us to TikTok. Is TikTok getting banned? I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you that. My stance on this is it kind of leads into the idea of short form vertical content is not going anywhere. And that is a distribution platform for short form vertical content. If TikTok is part of, is it TikTok part of anyone's like primary social here? I think we're like one and a half, two. Combined, we have 3.5, let's say, 3 3/4. What's funny is I will encourage you all to repurpose your content there, and we'll get into what that looks like. To me, at the way that the ban is worded, the earliest TikTok goes away is in about 9 months, and that's not a reason to ignore a social network, especially because you're going to put the same content on multiple platforms. So if you are there, keep doing what you're doing until someday it shuts off, if it does. I personally don't think it's going anywhere. I think it'll either get sold or something politically dire will happen and it'll end up sticking around. But we're not going to talk about who's going to win the presidency. But like I said, that kind of leads us into like a philosophy that's done quite well for me and my clients on the brand side, which is one type of content on every single social network. And it's funny, I was talking with like some of the Teachable people, some of my friends that are here. This is such a YouTube crowd, which is very different. I usually talk to brand marketers who they can't long form their way into anything. They want to talk to me about 3-second pieces of content. I'm like, well, that's too short. But I think for this audience, I really wanted to talk about this because you can get more value out of the things you're making, I believe. TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts, the exact same content can perform on all 3 of those. This is probably the fight that I get in the most with brand marketers. They want to tell me that there's like platform-specific trends or like TikTok is so different than the other ones. Like, no, it's not. Like, they're all distribution platforms. That's all they are. So the only caveat with these is YouTube Shorts requires you to be less than 60 seconds, which I imagine most people in this room know. For someone from my world, that's a real pain because I'm used to making 90s for TikTok and Instagram Reels. But as long as your short form vertical is under 60, you should be posting everything on all 3 of these networks. There is no downside, especially because I think most people here, if your course is not your primary business, it's one of your primary businesses, this is all free top of funnel for like Control-C, Control-V on a different social network. Like, question I get a lot is like, well, don't I have to community manage there? Don't I have to spend time in the comments there? Not necessarily. Like, you decide like the best way to use your time. And you already have built up communities on whatever your social platform or your YouTube of choice is. Put them out there and see what happens. It's literally free extra distribution. And with these algorithms, they're gonna push you to new audiences. So this is a silly example I like to use. I make like little TikTok accounts, like weird little art projects. Like Dara is one of my actual friends in real life, and we joke like I just make these things and I grow them to 50K, and then I'm like, I'm bored. I'm gonna do something else now. So I had this one that's about emo music. I was an emo journalist before I was in advertising. And this did 200,000 views. And I'm just like doing like stupid pained face in front of this. The reason I show it is this is the top comment on it. And if that's not the proof that any kind of content can perform on any network, I don't know what is. And I straight up didn't even realize that until I saw the comment. I burst out laughing. This is where, if any of you are doing like, I know like a lot of video creators here, if you are doing written content, there are really great ways to put that onto the visual social networks. And like we can talk on the side. I've actually written some guides for how to do that, so we can talk on the side about that. But again, like it's not about optimizing the formats. Like it's not about making it as pretty as possible. Does the value or the entertainment of it come through? And like this has no production value whatsoever. But it did plenty of numbers because people stopped to read it, laughed, and engaged with it. And I teased this a little earlier. Platform-specific trends are not real. Like something might originate on a TikTok, and maybe there's something that starts to happen because of a feature on a TikTok or Instagram Reels. It will come to the other social networks. And in fact, if you engage with it, you'll probably just look smart because you'll look early on the other platforms. I tend to be very anti-trend overall. I think you're better off making original content. And then if you want to engage with trends every once in a while, fine. But like, I usually encourage people to not do any trend content. Like, spend your time sharing who you are and what you do and what you provide. And if you want to every once in a while, I guess. This is another one kind of related to the content performs everywhere. And again, this is one that from my brand marketing friends, like I get a little heat from. Like truly, like every person's on every social network. Like you hear a lot of association where it's like, Facebook's for people that are a little older these days, or TikTok's just for kids. Like the average person's on 6.7 social networks. Like they are everywhere. They are turning off their TikTok so then they can go scroll Instagram. So then they can go check who they've subscribed to on YouTube. Like people are truly everywhere. And like, as we look to, if you're looking to expand to like a new social network, yes, there's probably decent places to start. Like I remember someone mentioned like Facebook is their bread and butter yesterday. You can reach those same people elsewhere. And again, that's where I don't want you to develop tons of original content. I'm not asking you to make more and more and more video. I'm asking you to consider how to repurpose that video in as many places as possible, because you might build additional communities. So this is something that's happening, I think, a lot on social. This is something that I've used to game my own platforms quite a bit, is the idea of there's basically a couple stages as you like become social media specific creators. There's the, I'm just making things, trying to figure out what works for me. There's the, I figure out how to get engagement and views on a single piece of content. And then there's the, I can make content that gets views and followers. Like it does feel like it's like an arc that you have to go on. And I'm sure a lot of you have done that. So we've talked about, I mentioned I have like these little art projects that I do. About a year ago, decided to document my adult basketball comeback. I played college, like very low level college ball before this comes on, or before I played volleyball. I played like NAIA college ball. I have a really weird basketball story where like 7th grade, I was one of the top ranked players in the nation. And then I stopped growing and then played mostly for fun, got my like rink-a-dink scholarship. But at 35, I like wanted to have like a comeback, just see what I could do with it, and like not strategically make content, not build an audience, not do anything. I just wanted to have fun with it. So I started making videos, and then I accidentally now have 70,000 followers following my like loppy 35-year-old self playing in rec leagues. But what I want to show you today is 2 different content strategies I've used for that. This one, I'll start it over. This is an example of a piece of one-off content that I knew would generate big engagement. If it got followers, great. It's just sort of like kind of broad top of funnel, get my face out there. But I didn't expect this to bring in a ton of followers because the value prop isn't based on that. It's like a great story. I was ranked higher than Russell Westbrook in California basketball recruiting.
What?
And I've got receipts. Here I am at number 85, my junior year of high school, and there's Russ down at 101. Now, obviously, this is ridiculous. I got a scholarship to a small 1,000-person Christian school. Russ went to UCLA and became the first NBA player to average a triple-double since Oscar Robertson. So this happened for 2 very silly reasons. In 7th grade, I won a national championship. I was one of the top-ranked centers in the nation. In basketball rankings, if you start high, you descend slowly. Problem, I stopped growing at 6'5". I moved like honey porn out of a jar. I've never dunked really in my life. Russ was only 5'10" as a junior, grew up to 6'4", and his game was more suited for the pros than college, so he really hit his stride once he got paid to play. This all goes to show you both how fun and how silly basketball rankings can be. Like, it's like a fun fact that I love to pull out. Obviously, it's ridiculous. Very silly story, very true. But when I like built this piece of content, like I had several things in mind. Like one, what is the hook up front that's gonna be interesting to people? And me saying I was ranked higher than an NBA MVP is definitely gonna do that. Making sure I had receipts and could show proof of that was big. And then tying it back into a lesson where at the end I talk about how like we should all learn from this. This is kind of silly. Like, why are we ranking 13-year-olds in basketball? Like, it's outrageous. As well as a couple of like baited hooks in there. Like I heard a laugh at like honey porn out of a jar. And like I mentioned there, like I've never dunked. I just can't jump. My body won't do it. I've tried everything. Those things baited the comments to like repeat those back to me, where I ended up making content about how I've never dunked. That became a whole thing. This piece of content, I had 10,000 followers when I first posted it, did 1.5 million views the first time on both platforms, on TikTok and Instagram. Went a year later, reposted the exact same thing, did 2.5 million views this time. Both times, Shaq has reposted it. I don't know how he saw it. I don't know why, but he reposted it both times on his Instagram. Mark Cuban shared it the first time, and then a bunch of youth basketball coaches who want their kids to understand how silly these things can be. A lot of parents reshared it. So again, this is where hook, story, lesson, baiting the dialogue a little bit to then get some commentary on it. There's a lot you can do with that. So that's an example of like something I knew would just get engagement. And like, sure, I got followers from it. Like I get this video referenced to me quite a bit. But then I think one of the best ways to grow on social media right now is to do a mixture of that kind of content and then what I call series content. My basketball accounts, I have 40,000 on Instagram, I have 30,000 on TikTok, but I routinely am doing 50 to 100,000 views per reel. My engagement's incredibly high. That's very, very important to me personally. And that's how I'm selling brand deals right now. Like my last Rec League series where I documented my whole team, across 12 videos, I did 2.5 million views from 70,000 total followers. Like, so you can really, if you understand how to make content that has strong hooks, strong like meat within the middle of it, and then endings that actually pull in more followers, like your view counts can really skyrocket. Like my goal is to always average more views than I have followers across my across Instagram and TikTok, which I do believe is achievable pretty much until you hit that 6-figure mark. Then it becomes a little tougher. But anyway, one of the ways that I do that again is through this series content where I introduce a premise and a reason and a journey that you're gonna follow me on. So same basketball account. Oh, this one was deleted when, okay, I'll talk through this. Basically what I did is I made a video about how I wanted to be MVP of my rec league. I was like, I've played in this league forever. Like I've played for a million different teams. I hint that like me and my team got in a fight, and that's probably why I separated from that team and started my own team. Nicknamed them Happy Hour, tried to do some like wholesomeness is like very much like a part of my basketball brand. And this was all about like who I am, why I have this goal of trying to be MVP of my rec league. This also did 1 million views on each of my accounts, but it also generated about 10,000 followers who then were coming back every week to see how I was performing in the league. As long as I've worked in social, and I think as far as where things were going, like there are really only 2 things that have ever mattered. Like I don't care what content form, I don't care if 4D, smell-o-vision becomes a thing. Like you have to have like truly great creative ideas, which is broad, but this is where like, do you actually understand what your audience wants? Like what is the thing they are looking for from you? What improves their lives? Like what is the emotional value? And when I talk to marketers, I'm like, all of you are nodding your head like, yeah, I do that. I was like, no, you're not when I talk to the marketers. Like they have to really learn to challenge themselves. Like, is it actually a really fantastic, can't miss creative idea? And we're gonna hear from this guy again.
We work on videos probably 3 to 4 months in advance. So from the start to when they get uploaded, it's probably like 1 to 2 months coming up with the idea, 3 to 4 months working on the idea, and then a couple weeks filming, and then like 3 weeks editing. So probably 5 months from start to finish.
So the part I hope we all gather from that is how long they think of the idea. Jimmy has very famously shelved videos he spent $500,000 on because he couldn't figure out the thumbnail. Like his life is all about content performance. And that's where the idea generation part for them, that's all that matters. They're sure they'll accomplish whatever they want execution. They have an incredible production house, like, but if your YouTube title and the thumbnail aren't right, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of stuff, but that's where this is really true for social as well. And we'll get into like repurposing content. For a lot of you, you should be repurposing to build. And then if you find it's worth your time, either top of funnel conversion wise, then maybe do original content. We'll get to that, but I can't stress how important that part is. Truly great creative hooks. A lot of YouTubers in this room, you are all masters of this because you understand that the title of your YouTube video is one of the most important things. Those titles are social media hooks. Almost always you can use that as a thing that will drive traffic to your Instagram reels. We're gonna skip this, Kai teased it. This is Jimmy's manager, where he talks about the same thing. Oh, actually it is slightly different. I lied.
Never heard a creator obsess over a 10-second intro in my life. But he's like, this is how important this is because this is literally the hook of why people would stay for this 20-minute video. That's when I knew I was like, his brain just works differently than any other creator I've met to this point.
So again, I know like he's a very different creator than all of you in almost every way, shape, and form. The things to learn from him, and like when you watch one of his videos, is how is he retaining you? Why are you compelled to stick around? One of the things that I find most fast about him is, because I came from ad agencies, I worked with lots of wish they were screenwriters or wish they were directing feature films and people who are doing zoom out shots from vistas to start our trailers, which I always fought. I was like, no, we got to get into this thing. If you watch one of his videos, like one of them would be like, I bought a $1 yacht and $1 million yachts. What's the difference? He gets in there, he doesn't introduce himself, he doesn't do anything. He goes, I got a $1 yacht and $1 million yacht. Let's look at the first $1 yachts. And immediately gets into the video and actually slows himself down once he's gotten you through the first minute of content, because he wants you to start hitting that. He wants you to understand the premise. And then he's inserting the additional retention hooks within there. Then it'll become like and later we're showing you this, and then we slow down again. Like his pacing there is stuff that everyone can learn from. Quickly, how do you get to like great hooks and great creative ideas? These are kind of the three things that like my first creative director told me, like just consistently put myself through this lens. Like, why should I care? Why should I share? Why should I follow? They're pretty simple. And I think the thing that makes that changes between like a good creator and a great creator is learning to be really honest with yourselves. Like, is it gonna be really spectacular in one of these categories? Like, is it truly something that's gonna make people care about this? Is it truly something that someone's gonna share? Like referencing that rankings video I did. If it's a funny story, like it's like, oh, that's weird, that guy like played a lot of basketball, they'll happily like and comment on it. But because I had a lesson within it at the end, that I didn't have to relate it back. I could have just been like, I could have flexed and just bragged. Because I included a lesson that I believed in, that's what encouraged people to share that. So that's what got parents behind the whole thing. And again, that why should I follow piece. For those of you that are getting either high viewership but not converting to a ton of new follows, like this is where, are you consistently answering this question within your contents? And that can mean lots of things. If you're doing more long form, are you actually verbally saying within your videos, maybe like at certain, like either ad marks you would normally do, here's what else I'm gonna be offering you past what this video is about. There's lots of different things you can be doing there to make sure they're actually coming along for the journey if they're just discovering you through search. I kind of hit on this, like again, I just really encourage you to like take your first ideas and like really just like beat them up. Like decide for yourself if they're real. Like something I did, I had a different basketball TikTok account where I was doing alternate realities and like fictional stories about basketball. And I knew I had this idea for what I thought Space Jam 2's plot should have been. And I had the whole thing written out. I had the whole video recorded. And I couldn't figure out what the hook was for it. So I literally just took out a notepad and I wrote down 25 different versions of what I thought the hook could be. And it was like idea 20 where I was like, oh, this is the one I got to do. And the line was, this is why LeBron should be the villain of Space Jam 2. And the reason I did that was, one, like name recognition twice, LeBron and Space Jam. I did like an emotional hook there where it's like, wait, the villain, like this is the guy who's like the good guy for everybody. That performed 1,000,000 times better than if I had done like, here's my idea for a movie plot. Here's my idea for Space Jam 2. Like it provided context for the story I was telling. That video did, I think I had 10,000 followers on that account, like 4 million views and got syndicated on the shoe blogs, like because the hook was right and got seen by the right people. This has happened to all of you, I bet. Everyone who's on YouTube, like your ideas, if you're any good at this, they'll end up getting stolen by someone bigger than you. I encourage you to kindly use other people's content as inspiration for yourselves. None of us have original ideas. I'm sorry, I don't, you don't, none of us do. And we're all kind of repeating the same thing, especially if you're in a niche that's a competitive, saturated niche. Like you'll probably see someone has made the video that you want to make. It's okay for you to make that video. I encourage you not to copy someone's content, but you should be using everyone for inspiration. And the thing I really encourage you to do is look for inspiration outside of your industry. The second ever newsletter I wrote for Future Social, I had discovered an emo band that had done an Instagram carousel that I'd never seen before, where they told the timeline of their album through 10 slides. Super cool. My audience would have never looked for that because they'd be like, well, what is Burger King tweeting today? And I put that in front of them, like, oh, wow, we can like use our personal interests to learn. Like, yes, please, like steal from other content creators, steal from brands, steal from everybody, and think about how you can apply that to like your own content. And then vulnerability, if you're not being vulnerable, I know it can be like a scary word. This has been a bit, I don't like the word hack, but it's helped me quite a bit. Is like, I'm a bit of an oversharer in like my flaws and like what's going on. Like I was joking with Tara, like I'm a little burned out. This is my third conference in 2 weeks. Like all of the Teachable team follows me and I still put on Instagram like, I'm tired, like I'm exhausted. And I remember we were laughing, I was like, they're all gonna see that. Like that's also like part of who I am. Like in my industry, I'm the guy who kind of talks about like what's really like going on in my head and how I feel. And like when I had the 9-to-5 jobs, like what was really tough for me about those. If you're willing to be vulnerable, even if you're doing like highly professional content, it just changes the audience's relationship with you so much. Like they want to support you. They want to continue to follow your journey. The number of times where I do like brand deals for my marketing content and someone mentions basketball, it's probably 75% of the time now.